Yes, this is DJ Ski, and this is the Sports Card Strategy Show. You already know there is no off-season.
I'm Jeff Wilson, and I'm loving the content here on the Sports Card Strategy Show. There is no off-season.
All right, you ready to rock?
Ready to go.
What's up, everybody? I'm Paul Hickey with NoOffSeason.com. This is the Sports Card Strategy Show brought to you by Graybo's Sports Cards. Graybo's Sports Cards is a local card shop located in Richmond, Virginia, and is owned by Gray Barnett, Ryan Fitz, and Duke Dodson, who you know as Denny one time. Graybo's sports the best selection of singles in the Mid-Atlantic and a wide variety of wax. Graybo's is happy to announce that they are now the only direct buyer of Topps Bowman in Central Virginia and are now breaking daily on Fanatics Live. They are moving to their new larger shop, which will be connected to the hottest sports bar in Richmond in the near future. Stay tuned for those details. Listeners of Sports Card Strategy Show can use the promo code GRAYBOS20 to get $20 off their first purchase with Graybos on Fanatics Live. Don't forget to get a free 30-day trial at NoOffSeason.com today to help you make money flipping sports cards, build your sports card investment portfolio, get unlimited advice from our experts, and take Sports Card School to navigate the hobby. That's NoOffSeason.com. Get your free 30-day trial today. All the data we use on the Sports Card Strategy Show is from MarketMoversApp.com. Use code NOOFFSEASON at MarketMoversApp.com to get 20% off for life after a free 14-day trial. All right, let's get to the Sports Card Strategy.
Happy Wednesday, Sports Card Strategy Show Familia. Connor Barnett here, head of contents at NoOffSeason.com, alongside Paul Hickey, who is here to help you make money flipping sports cards. Paul, how are we doing on this fine Wednesday?
Great, Familia. Dropping the Espanol. Love it.
Let's get it. We got a bunch of good stuff packed into today's show per usual. We're going to talk opening day for the MLB, which is tomorrow. Are your cards listed? Adjusted strategies for NFL draft listings to optimize profits there. Updated rankings, tease, and breakdown. We've also got updated top 5 cards to buy now and grade at NoOffSeason.com, a new premium article. What we would do if we had between $100 and $150 trying to hit that budget gap. And then we will wrap up the show per usual with audience Q&A. It looks like the live chat is already jumping, which we love to see. We got Shane Graham in the house, Gabe Davis, Rusty and McGart, Mr. T, Brendan Lindgren. I better get a shout out. Says I'm here live for the first time. Let's go, Brendan. Thank you for being here. Chuck G. What's up, guys? Bummed I missed the live stream on Monday. That's all right, Chuck. We're glad to have you here. Now we got Mountain Lake Cards and Games, as well as a Facebook user that I cannot see who it is, so make sure to leave me a note on who you are. We got Alan Ma in the house. Welcome to the live, Brendan. Pumped to have you here. Pumped to have everybody here. Paul, let's go ahead and hop into a couple housekeeping items before we jump into the show.
Yeah, man. We appreciate everybody listening on Apple and Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, watching at youtube.com/Paul Hickey, jumping in the live chat. We're streaming on X. We're streaming on IG. We're basically everywhere right now. Sports Card Strategy Show. NoOffSeason.com fam. Like Connor said, don't forget to drop your questions in the live chat along with your L's and dubs. We're going to hit you up at the end of the show. But don't forget, if you like the content we're putting out, it really, really helps us a lot to like, comment, subscribe at youtube.com/Paul Hickey. Even those of you in the live chat, if you can comment after the show, it's big, big, big for us. All right. Are you ready to start grading your sports cards? CGC Cards is the perfect place to slab your favorite sports cards. From their crystal clear holders to their affordable pricing, CGC Cards is the perfect stop for your grading needs. Go to cgccards.com to start grading today. And we're going to talk a lot in this show, Connor, about grading at PSA, because I grade at PSA. Even though we love CGC, I grade at PSA because they just give you the most value back on the secondary market. They sell better on the secondary market. And I want to be transparent with the people. So we think there's a place for multiple grading companies in the hobby. PSA is currently the one I'm sending all of my cards to. Sports Card School, guys. Sports Card School is huge at NoOffSeason.com. It is a safe place for noobs, advanced flippers, and high rollers alike to learn how to navigate the hobby and build a collection that increases in value. Why, Connor and nooffseason.com fam? Because if your collection is not increasing in value, that means it's decreasing. And that means you could be at risk of leaving the hobby. And we don't want that to happen. We know how to help you make smart decisions and help you make money flipping sports cards. Go to sportscardschool.com right now and sign up for a free 30-day trial to start learning our guidelines, strategies, and plays to help you make money flipping sports cards to fund your PC and other things in your life. Guys, for those of you, don't get it confused. Sportscardschool.com basically just redirects you to the Sports Card School page at nooffseason.com. Everybody, let's hand it back over to Connor, who's back from the lab and from a little trip to Mexico, which is why I think he dropped the Espanol on you guys. What's the pregunta of the day, Connor?
Question of the day: what sport is the easiest for you to make money on in your experience? Which is the hardest and why? The reason I'm asking this, Paul, everyone kind of has their niche. Everyone has their different strategies in different sports. I think that we can all kind of use this platform to learn from each other. So I would love to get y'all's feedback in terms of where you're the most successful in, what gives you the most trouble, where we can be helpful, where we can learn from each and every one of you. So comment at youtube.com/Paul Hickey or on our pinned post on Instagram at Sports Card Strategy. That is on Instagram at Sports Card Strategy there. We want to know where you do the best and what gives you the most struggles so that we can all learn and help each other out. Paul, real quick, I'm curious, Paul, what would be your answer there? Where are you the most successful when it comes to which sports you make the most profits on and what gives you the most trouble? Obviously, some of the smaller sports can be more difficult, but we'll keep it in the main sport kind of diagram there.
Yeah. What sport is the easiest for me to make the most money on? Right now, it's baseball prospecting. I think it's just because we always talk about only buy with a clear selling marker in mind. And that selling marker, for the most part, has been the call up. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to make the most profit at the call up, because we saw guys like Ellie De La Cruz last year just play ridiculously well and sort of transcend the sport and how the sport's played into, being a 6'5" shortstop that just does everything differently. So it's not that you can't make more money after the call up. It's that the call up is a great selling marker. So when you buy the right card for the right player at the right time, it's easiest to make money in baseball cards. It has been. I foresee, however, college football cards being the next easiest, not only kind of 1B to baseball prospecting's 1A, but literally the next in line to be the easiest. Because I think when you look at guys like Caleb Williams, I've talked about Caleb Williams for over a year, and I've bought him for over a year. And now his cards should get a lot of attention with the NFL draft in a month, basically almost exactly a month from today. And so his card should start to get a lot more action, a lot more attention. And that selling marker is going to be huge, I think, for a lot of listeners of the Sports Card Strategy Show who have kind of been behind my take on Caleb Williams. And there's even been other guys more recently like Drake May and Marvin Harrison Jr. We're going to get into that on today's show. But I think baseball prospecting is number one easiest because you've got the call up as a selling marker. I think quarterback and other college football prospects is probably the second easiest because you've got the NFL draft as a selling marker. And for guys like Carson Beck, even Riley Leonard, who's a bit more of a sleeper, you've got the upcoming season. And Shedeur Sanders, 26% of my sports card investment portfolio is in Shedeur Sanders. And so you've got the 2025 NFL draft and possibly even September 2024 when college football kicks back off again for his cards to rise. So the hardest, Connor, is also part of the question. The hardest for me, I've been on record on this show saying NBA cards, man. I just think NBA cards dip in pricing at specific times during the year, typically a lot between Thanksgiving and Christmas. There's a huge dip. And then it's just hard to see a consistent rise in pricing, even for the cards that dip. So it's not that they don't rise. They do. We saw like Tyrese Halliburton, Anthony Edwards. We've seen Paolo Banchero. We've seen a lot of other guys rise in pricing from where they were in November and December. However, when is the question? When is it going to happen? How long do you need to have these cards in your portfolio before you can liquidate them? So the planning of it is always a little bit nerve-wracking with NBA cards, which I think makes it the hardest. You can still buy the right card for the right player at the right time, but the lack of a clear selling marker, other than a guy basically winning the NBA Finals MVP, which I think is the hardest thing to predict, that's why NBA cards, I believe, are the hardest. I mean, not to take this on a whole rant here, but even in the NFL, you can buy during March, you can buy during June. Typically, you can buy in that same pocket I talked about between Thanksgiving and Christmas for quarterbacks, and you can sell at the end of August, early September for quarterbacks, and you can always make money doing that. So I'd say easiest baseball prospecting, college football prospecting, and NFL quarterbacks. Hardest NBA, which I know is your favorite sport. So we're trying to unlock that for the people, for the family, for the nooffseason.com family. We're trying to unlock, how do we really hone in on making money on NBA cards? We'll get there. It's just a little bit harder.
Really well put. Yeah, I totally agree. This is just an area where, when it comes to basketball cards specifically, we're looking to kind of build our strategies in a more bulletproof way. Like you're saying, for me, those QBs, I feel like right now, in the last several weeks, we've seen really how optimal it can be to buy them right now, right? So I think we're trying to find something similar for basketball players where it's a locked-in point in the year where we know, okay, if we buy these right now, we're going to have that sell market coming up based on historical trends. So we're definitely looking deeper into that. Paul, I think in general right now we're in an interesting part of the year, an exciting part for sports card flippers, right? We've got the NFL draft coming up. We've got baseball starting. We've seen prospect cards start to spike. We've got the NBA playoffs coming up. It's just an interesting time of the year. We're going to start kind of realizing profits a little bit, to have different interesting buying opportunities. One of them obviously coming up is tomorrow. We have opening day for Major League Baseball. Guys, are your cards listed? We've sent out several sell alerts for Wyatt Langford, Jackson Merrill, and Jackson Churio, based on who had seen some serious spikes in terms of their pricing or who received news of making the team out of spring training, which is why we recommended 7 to 10 day auctions that would end on opening night, or even at the end of the first series to kind of gain that residual hype from the first couple days of the season. Paul, for those of our listeners right now that maybe haven't been paying attention to our content lately or are just recently joining the Sports Card Strategy Show family, what are you seeing now that you want to tell people in terms of how to list their baseball cards to try to make profits there?
Yeah, when we send out sell alerts, we do recommend a lot of the time that you list in 7 or 10 day auctions. And what I'm seeing is that, there hasn't been as much action for Jackson Churio and even Wyatt Langford as I would have expected. And I think on one hand, I could probably list a lot of reasons why I think that that's probably happening. I'll just say I do think anecdotally that the NCAA tournament taking up so much, the first weekend of the NCAA tournament taking up so much of everyone's attention in the world is bound to take a little bit of attention away from auctions when guys were not actually called up, but they actually just broke camp with the team. And so I think that we're always learning as we go. And one slight tweak to the strategy moving forward could be that when we see this, maybe, fam, we list and buy it now our best offers for our bigger cards, right? Because you still want to have your cards listed. You don't want to miss the selling marker. And you don't want to hope that these guys are going to mash out of the gate, because I just think that's super risky. We all like to think that Jackson Churio is going to hit 3 home runs in his major league debut tomorrow. Now, if he does, my auctions are going to do very well, and all of yours are going to do very well. I think they're probably still going to do well, honestly, because auctions typically don't do well until the final day. But they also typically, if it's the right card for the right player at the right time at the selling marker, they typically do well at the beginning of the auction when they're a new listing. They typically get a little bit more action than they did. And again, that's why I go to potentially the first weekend of the NCAA tournament. And that's where I go to potentially a little bit less hype, where there's not a call-up announcement, but there's a broke camp with the team announcement. Now, we still think this is a selling marker. I stand by our sell alerts. I'm just kind of, what I wanted to say is that instead of always listing in a 7 to 10 day auction to get sort of the news of the alert, the call up, breaking camp with the MLB team or whatever, and on the back end of that, get the debut, I think what you can do to mitigate some risk is go buy it now or best offer upon the announcement. And then you can always take it down and list it in an auction when the player does well in their debut or when they start doing well. However, there's risk to that. And that's why I've always liked the 7 to 10 day auction. And the risk to that is, now, what if Wyatt Langford and Jackson Chourio in this example, what if they don't do well in their opening weekend? What if they Spencer Torkelson themselves? Now, I'm still hurting from Spencer Torkelson's drought at the beginning of his major league career a couple of years ago. I'm still just hurt. Not that I was all in on all of his cards and needed to make a bunch of money. It was more just because I'm a Detroit Tigers fan. I was just waiting forever for that first home run. And it took like months for Spencer Torkelson to hit his first home run. That first home run is really going to be what drives pricing back up for prospects. But the longer it takes for it to happen, like literally at bats, the more at bats it takes for it to happen, their card prices just plummet. They really do. So I really think that I stand by our strategy of the 7 or 10 day auction at the right time, but I don't disagree with people that want to kind of diversify their listings and go buy it now or best offer with some of their bigger cards. But I would say it's an art form. There's no blanket statement that's going to make you the most money. Do whatever works for you. Do whatever you're most comfortable with your biggest cards. I think that each year, each time that there's a selling marker, each season, things are going to go down a little bit differently. They just are. So, we try to prepare you for that, and we hope we do a good job. And I think that, one last thing I'll say on this note is our process. I want to just kind of reiterate our process kind of for the people that are coming in sort of new to the show and new to nooffseason.com. Our process is basically to recommend cards that are the right cards for the right players. And when we recommend them, that implies that is the right time. And we talk about that. And we talk about some of them on this show. And then we put all of them at nooffseason.com in the sports card rankings. That's literally where you can go to see all of our buy recommendations at any given time. And then when you click down into that player profile, we are recommending cards to buy. And the process is, when you buy those cards, we have a selling marker in mind, and we put that on those player profile pages. Now, we think that that selling marker is probably going to be the drop dead last potential date to profit from those cards. We think that there's probably going to be selling markers ahead of that as well. Okay. We think that worst case scenario, you're going to break even. That's why we're recommending those cards. We hesitate to project whether you're going to profit 10%, 30%, 70%, 100%, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's no way of us knowing that, because some of it's based on what happens when we get to that selling marker, or things that could happen before the selling marker that could drive up prices. We just don't know. We don't have the crystal ball, but we have our guideline strategies in place to know that we're putting you in a position where, let's say out of the 100% of the cards that you buy, AKA your portfolio, if you're following our recommendations, something like this should happen. You should profit about 10 to 20% for probably about 70% of your portfolio. You're probably going to break even on about 15%, and you could 1.5x to 3x the other 15%. So it's very, very hard to be held accountable every single sell alert for a 1.5 to 2x. Now, I realize that we're going to be held accountable to that, right? People are going to look at us and they're going to go, well, Jackson Churio didn't 2x like you thought. Wyatt Langford didn't 2x like you thought, and so that's fine. But I do want to take the time to say, we're not saying that every single one of these is going to 1.5 or 2x. We're saying that you're not going to lose money, and you're probably going to profit 10 to 20%, 70% of the time. The other 15%, the other 30% of the time, half of that, you're going to break even. Half of that, you're probably going to 1.5 to 2x. And I think if you just follow that, but you also have to follow the most important part is the selling, right? It's easy to buy. It's very easy to buy cards. The most important, hardest part is the selling. And I think that's where it's an art form.
A lot of good stuff broken down there in terms of selling tips for these baseball prospects. We're going to stick on the sell tips and actually some updated advice here. And we're going to talk adjusted strategies for NFL draft listings. Paul, you're going to kind of lead the ship here in terms of how we can maybe change up our strategies a little bit to optimize profits for these NFL prospects that we've been holding on to as the NFL draft approaches. What you got for us?
Yeah, so this is going to kind of fall in line with the talk about the baseball prospects, right? Because I'm constantly, when I'm not actually in the lab, Connor, my brain is in the lab, right? Like I'm like cooking dinner, or I'm walking the dog, or I'm running, or I'm driving. And I'm always thinking about, like, how do I list my Caleb Williams Bowman Chrome First 2022 prospect auto PSA 10? How do I list my Drake May, refractor auto PSA 10 Bowman Chrome First? Would Rome Odunze's card, out of 50 auto PSA 10 or raw, would that blow up in the week leading up to the draft, or is it going to blow up in August when he's making highlight reel catches and his pro releases aren't out yet? And so that thought process really got me to a point where I wanted to reach out to our one-on-one strategist people first. So I reached out to them earlier this week and I said, look, let's go through your NFL draft prospect cards carefully starting now, so that in the next month, we know what we're doing with each of them, right? And so now I want to talk to the entire nooffseason.com family about that. What I want to say is similar to what I just said about the baseball prospects. If you think about this, first of all, go to your favorite mock draft websites. Like, I'm on cbssports.com right now. I'm on espn.com right now. And you just look and you see things like espn.com, for example, has Caleb, in this order, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, JJ McCarthy, Joe Alt, who's an offensive tackle, and then Malik Neighbors. So you've got 4 quarterbacks in the first 4 picks. You got Malik Neighbors, number 6. What's interesting is so Malik Neighbors is the number 1 wide receiver, right? Marvin Harrison Jr. is number 9 to the Bears. You've got, then ESPN.com has Kyler Murray getting traded to the Vikings on the Thursday night of the NFL draft. Bo Nix going 12th to the Broncos, and Rome Odunze going 14th to the Saints. Then you go over to CBSSports.com, Pete Prisco. You've got 4 quarterbacks with the top 4 picks. They're in a little bit different order. Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, JJ McCarthy, Drake May. They've got Marvin Harrison Jr. going 5th to the Chargers. They've got Malik Neighbors going 6th to the Giants. And oh, by the way, who did they have Drake May going to 4th? The Minnesota Vikings, because they also have a mock trade between the Vikings and the Cardinals. The point is, and they have Rome Odunze going 10th, and they have Brock Bowers, who we haven't talked about, going 11th. Okay, so the point is, nobody knows what the heck's going to happen. Nobody knows. This is the NFL. Predicting the NFL draft might as well be having a perfect bracket in March Madness. It's the same, if not harder odds to predict a perfect first round of the NFL draft. So the reason why this is important to the sports card selling strategy with all of these football prospects is because we don't know what the hype is going to look like for these guys. And because we don't know what the hype is going to look like on a player by player basis, I need everybody to be very, very careful. I need everybody to, when you're listing your cards, I need you to be aware of the following things. Number one, there will be some massive hype for the top names, specifically the quarterbacks, the week leading up to the draft. If you are in a position where you're going to profit and you've been banking on getting money back into your bankroll, you have the green light to list in those 7 to 10 day auctions, because we will be sending out sell alerts. Because there will be price increases for Caleb Williams' top cards, probably for Drake May's top cards. Jaden Daniels is not someone who we've talked a whole lot about in terms of his cards because he wasn't in Bowman. And JJ McCarthy's cards, we haven't talked about a whole lot either. I've gone so far as to tell people to fade JJ McCarthy's cards because he's got that split where his first is in 2021 unlicensed and are ugly AF, and then his first licensed ones without the first icon on them or in 2022. Those look better, but they're not his first. So you've got a split with JJ McCarthy. So that's why we've focused mainly on Caleb Williams and Drake May. But we don't know what's going to happen with these guys. And because of that, people could get slaughtered if they have the wrong cards up for auction the week leading up to the draft. And so that's the warning I want to throw out there. I want to say that if you, for example, I'm going to give some examples. If you bought into Caleb Williams Bowman Chrome first prospect auto, maybe you had it graded and it gemmed, maybe you're only a few $100s into those cards. You probably are okay listing the week leading up to the draft because there's going to be a lot of hype around Caleb Williams being the number one pick. However, on the other side of that, if you just bought Caleb Williams over the last 3 or 4 months because we've been touting him so highly as a NFL draft selling marker guy, you're probably not going to have the margin that the people who bought in a year ago are going to have. So you probably want to go buy it now or best offer because you could get slaughtered in an auction from that standpoint, right? Because if you're $800 in, I kind of expect my Bowman Chrome first prospect auto PSA 10 of Caleb Williams to go for somewhere between $800 and $1,200. But if you're $800 into that card, which certain people are, you're going to get slaughtered, I think, and you probably need to go buy it now or best offer and wait till there's less available. And it might need to be some kind of hype around Caleb Williams showing up in a Bears jersey for the first time, for example, in the news and or at his press conference or, something that will drive the sale of that card later. Now, on the other side of that, let's also talk about a guy like Drake May, because Drake May, he hasn't been on the market as long as Caleb Williams. He was in 2023 Bowman U and his Chrome first autos. They're just not as many of them in PSA 10, and he hasn't been on the market as long. And so I think he's more of a buy it now or best offer guy also because unless he ends up being the number one pick, if he ends up being the number one pick, maybe you go auction because now there's that hype. So what you have to do is you have to look at all these different factors. That's why selling is such an art form. You have to look at when is the hype going to be maximized? How much did I buy in at? How much can I afford to lose off of like what the top comp would be? AKA if I bought in earlier and I'm less into this card, I'm probably safer. So there's just a lot of names in this draft. There's going to be a lot of interest, but there's also going to be a lot up in the air in terms of who gets the most hype, whose cards have the most interest. I will say one more thing, Connor, and I'm going to hand it over to you because I'm curious to your take on this. If you've got like Rome Odunze, Brock Bowers, Malik Neighbors, let's throw Marvin Harrison Jr. into that mix. If you've got one of those skill position players, based on our singles recommendations, right? Chances are it's probably going to be a bigger card. It's probably going to be like either an out of 499 or under. It might even be like a gold out of 50, a yellow out of 25. It could be autos of those. You paid several $100s for that card. I would highly advise you not to auction those. Like, just because those types of cards, like Malik Neighbors, his market is like 1% of what Caleb Williams' market is. You know, you're looking at LSU fans, you're looking at fans of the teams that he gets drafted to. He's a wide receiver. So like, even if he does usurp Marvin Harrison Jr. as the number one wide receiver taken, it's just not as big of a market. And so what you don't want to do is you don't want to like be $600 into like a top tier Malik Neighbors auto and list it at, you know, a $299 opening bid and get like 4 bids and it sells for like $425. That easily could happen. So I just want everybody to really, really look at each individual card that they bought. Look at the situation with each player. Don't feel pressured to list in 7 to 10 day auctions leading up to the NFL draft. It's going to be now, if you have a Caleb Williams refractor PSA 10 or refractor PSA 9 or base non-auto PSA 10, like non-auto cards, those are probably cards you're going to want to list in 10-day auctions leading up to the draft. They're going to move. They're going to be liquid. You're probably going to make money on them. And if you don't make as much as you thought you were going to make, you're not going to get slaughtered because they're not several $100 cards. Connor, does that make sense? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to break down there from what you just laid out, but a few key points that resonated with me. One, essentially, everything that Paul just said goes back to why we don't make blanket statements, right? Because everyone's situation really is different. When you buy matters. Look at our rankings guys at nooffseason.com. They show target prices for the guys that we recommend you buying. If you can't find the card in that target price, do not buy the card, right? So you're going to see cards that potentially have target prices where you go look at their last 14-day average and you're like, dang, well, that's a $20 difference. Okay, well, then don't buy it in that $20 because you're going to get to the sell marker and you're going to be like, why am I only 1.2xing or why am I netting after all the fees? Well, probably because you didn't buy at the right price point. And obviously, you know, we're going to have guys that sit in our buys for several months and their cards are going to fluctuate. But that's why it's important to be able to kind of access and know when you need to buy in so that the markers really hit for you there. Everyone's situation is different too, Paul, like you're saying. Depends on, you know, how rare the card is. If you have a Brock Bowers, whatever it may be, out of 49 versus if you have a base card of Caleb Williams, those situations are different, which is why I believe the Overflow show is so valuable, because at the end of the day, like, it would be very difficult for us to sit here on the show and spend 2 hours trying to identify each person's different scenario to figure out exactly when to sell. And I love that you're coming out and kind of showing different examples of when to do buy it now as our best offers versus when to do auctions. So if you guys are not taking advantage of the Overflow show, if you're a premium member, you got to be asking questions in there. And if you're not, you can get a free trial to set that up and see if you enjoy the value that we're providing, because we really do sit down and spend several minutes on each question that you guys answer, because it's very difficult to come in here and provide just a one do-it-all set selling program when everyone bought in at different times. Everyone has different types of cards and things like that. So I think that's really well put, Paul. And I think it transitioned us well into our next topic, which is our updated rankings. Paul, I was kind of out of office over the last week, but you updated the rankings, and I want to break down kind of who moved. So do you want to give a quick overview of who moved up and down, and then we'll break down why?
Yeah, man. Jackson Holiday moved up, and the reason why is because this is a buying pocket where he did not get the call up. He did not get the announcement that he broke camp, and he's been our number one guy for so long. The only reason we moved him off the rankings list is because his pricing was creeping up in anticipation of the call up, and we expected it. We thought we were going to send out a sell alert. Instead, he did not break camp, which drove his pricing to go kind of back down to where we all sort of bought in on him. I threw out a few examples on Monday's show where, you know, a lot of us bought in around that $500-ish price point for the raw auto, the Bowman Chrome First raw auto, which is kind of our flagship baseball card prospecting card for everybody. He was at a 2022 Bowman draft, and the PSA 9 reflects a similar pricing to the raw. Even the PSA 10's gone down a little bit. So he's back up again. And yeah, go check out the rankings, because it is a time where when he does get that call up, I believe that people will make, can make quite a bit of money if they were to buy in now. So we moved him back up. QBs, I mean, QBs are huge. Like, it's no secret, but just want to reiterate, Justin Herbert, Tua Tagovailoa, they're, cards like their 2020 Optic Hollow PSA 10s with the rated rookie logo. Those are just such beautiful, achievable, liquid, high upside, high floor cards that it's hard not to have them so high in our rankings right now, because no one's thinking about those guys during March Madness. No one's thinking about those guys during the opening day of MLB season. And those are the guys that are going to make you maybe not quite a bit of money, but they're going to be like the safe mutual funds in your portfolio that are going to give you a little bit of boost when they perform well early on in September. They should be very, very easy to make money on, make a profit. One guy with high upside, college QB Carson Beck, has been moved up quite high in our rankings. I would call him sort of the Caleb Williams, Shedeur Sanders in the on deck circle, if you will, meaning, I've talked so much about Caleb Williams and Shedeur Sanders on this show, and I'm talking about Carson Beck now for the same exact reasons. He is kind of the undisputed number one college QB heading into the 2024 college football season based on all of the prognosticators' articles throughout the college football landscape. And so I take that to mean that, in a top program like Georgia, I see his selling marker, not necessarily the 2025 NFL draft like with Shedeur Sanders, but just more the beginning of the 2024 college season when Georgia's out there just running people over and Carson Beck's getting a lot of media attention. So I really, really like Carson Beck. Victor Wembanyama is back. Victor Wembanyama is back. We talked about a period of uncertainty for him, Connor. For those of you not familiar with the Sports Card Strategy Show, we think we're better than Netflix, and you can go back and binge watch all the way back to, I believe, January 2nd or January 3rd of 2024. I could barely talk that day, but I talked about Victor Wembanyama being in a period of uncertainty. And the period of uncertainty was basically with his Prism about to come out, and Hoops was out and Don Russ was coming out and Prism was coming out. And now that Prism's been out for a while, the market's kind of settled on the Wemby Prism. And I got to say, there's a high gem rate. There's like a 60% gem rate from his base to a PSA 10. And right now, the PSA 8s and PSA 9s are still selling for basically like a break even or a slight profit. And so there's a play to buy the Victor Wembanyama base Prism and have it graded at PSA. And pretty much a selling marker is non-existent. Now, I normally say like don't buy without a selling marker in mind. If I had to put a selling marker on it, it would be the beginning of next NBA season, usually the third or fourth week in October. 61.6% gem rate. We don't think the Rookie of the Year award will necessarily be a selling marker or spike his prices. But and the Spurs are pretty much god awful this year, but there should be quite a bit of Wemby hype heading into next season, which could spike his prices. But Connor, this could just simply be a card. The reason I put it back in our rankings, this should just be a card that when you get it back, sell it. When you get it back from PSA, sell it. Because this will be one of the... Now, this could end up being like a pop 20,000 card. So the prices should continue to go down on this, but they shouldn't. It shouldn't like tank down. There shouldn't be like a drastic drop to where all of a sudden the PSA 10's like $100. The PSA 10 was selling for over 500 earlier this month. Now it's selling for about 350. I anticipate this PSA 10 continuing to sell pretty solidly throughout the NBA offseason and to spike a little bit at the end of October before it goes back down a little bit during that Thanksgiving to December. And then it'll probably go back up again gradually next February, etc. So I think that this could be a card where you hold it long term if it gems. you sell it right away if it gems, if you want to get the money, or you sell it in October. So I think Victor Wembanyama, I just think, is a guy that's here to stay. And I don't say that about a lot of players, but I think he's here in the hobby to stay. I think he's going to be the face of the NBA like forever. And that's why I added him back into the rankings, because that Prism market has kind of settled a bit. Yeah, Caleb Williams, and some other guys that are coming up on selling markers have moved down a little bit. They're still we still have Caleb Williams. We still have Drake May. We still have Marvin Harrison Jr. I just think their prices are going to go up quite a bit over the next 6 to 8 weeks. And so we may or may not move them off the rankings. Last thing I'll add here before I hand it back over to you on your comments on this is there's going to be a runway on the Caleb Williams cards, the Drake May, the Marvin Harrison Jr. cards. The runway is going to take us probably all the way through the NFL preseason. So if you're a believer that you'd rather just hold those cards through the NFL preseason to see what these guys do in training camp, highlights, hype around leading up to their rookie season, do that. Because if you want to move out of them during the NFL draft cycle, you banked on that, do that. But if you're okay holding them to see if they perform well during the preseason, they're not going to have pro cards out yet. So you still have that runway.
A lot of good insight there in terms of why we're moving guys in certain areas. I want to break it down a little bit further on specific guys, just with questions I kind of formed as you were breaking it down there, Paul. Let's start off with our guy, Jackson Holiday. I'm sure there's a little bit of concern from our listeners just because of how high Holiday has been in our listings over the last year plus. And now, obviously, we took him off for a little bit and we've added him back to second. Obviously, it could be some concern. Why are we buying him again? His prices have dropped, whatever it may be. I think there should actually be a lack of concern here, Paul, and here's why. You were mentioning, 10 or 15 minutes ago about all the different things happening right now. And in my brain, I was thinking it can almost water down the volatility spikes that happen from card to card because of all of the different events happening, right? Like the March Madness, the NFL draft, all these different things happening at once. If Jackson Holiday is called up in several months from now, rather than right now, one, we get the news of his call up. Two, he likely gets called up because he's crushing it in minor league ball. Three, he's getting called up on his own. So there's not a bunch of there's typically not going to be 7, 8 other guys called up around him at the same time. So I feel like he kind of gets the news by himself, which could potentially lead to more volatility in that area. I'm curious to see what you think there, Paul.
Yeah, you're right. All those factors definitely play in. We want a guy like Jackson Holiday to have a news cycle by himself. And that's essentially the punchline of what I was saying earlier, where it's like Churio, Langford, all these guys, they were mixed in with the news cycle of the first weekend of the NCAA tournament. All anyone's talking about is brackets. And so that was a little bit to their detriment. I think they're still going to be okay on their cards, but yeah, we want Holiday to have the silver lining is that, yeah, he is, to your point, he now is going to have a news cycle likely to himself because he's back down in the minors. The other thing I'm going to throw out some data here in a second, just related to Jackson Holiday. But one thing we talked about on Monday's show, the Ellie De La Cruz comparison related to pattern recognition, not comparison related to how they play baseball, but the pattern recognition of Ellie De La Cruz's trajectory as a call-up was, we all thought he was going to get the call-up. We all thought he was going to break camp with the Reds last year. Same thing with Holiday with the Orioles this year. Ellie had a minor injury, so they kept him in AA ball, I believe. So Ellie didn't get the call up until July. His prices went down. And then when he got the call up, literally his prices, I said this on Monday's show, but they went from $300 on his base auto first to $999 the day of the call up. And so I'm not concerned about Jackson Holiday. And it's like anything else. When you believe in a stock, you buy more of it when its price dips. And let's just throw out some data here. So his most achievable card that is liquid is his 2022 Bowman Draft Chrome First PSA 10. This is the top 2400. This card is not down over the last 14 days. This card is up 2.6%. So if you have followed our recommendations on Jackson Holiday, you're not down. You're just not up as much as you want to be up. So you're in a perfect pocket to profit when he gets that call up and profit even more. Now, his refractor version of that card, these are non-autos, is down 27.5% over the last 14 days. But in terms of his last 30 days of this card sold for the average sale of the refractor PSA 10 is $210 over the last 30 days. And so that's only $30 to $40 off of like basically the peak sale of this card. So it's not really a situation where his cards are down. It's just that the reason why he's back in the rankings is because we have an extended pocket to buy his cards before the selling marker. And man, oh man, when that selling marker does come, I think he's going to be in much better shape than if he would have broken camp. I mean, that's a little bit, that is just my opinion, but I do think we're going to be in good shape with his cards. And I mean, you could go down the list. I'm looking at all of his cards right now. We don't have enough time on today's show for me to get into all of them, but man, his cards are not necessarily tanking. They're just in a buying pocket. That's all. Well
put. I'm on the exact same page. I think that this is advantageous for Jackson Hall at this prices. I think it's going to be more volatile when he does get the call than if he had news broke that he was going to break camp with the team. You mentioned Wembenyama, obviously now back on the list. He's in 14th on our list, 61.6% gem rates on that Prism base. You mentioned Rookie of the Year won't spike. I agree here, and here's why, Paul. I just want to break this down for the audience members because I think we talk about a lot of different sell markers, and sometimes we're trying to figure some out. Sometimes they're staples, whatever it may be. But I think that this year the Rookie of the Year won't see a huge spike because I think it's just assumed that he's going to win Rookie of the Year. If it was maybe a big race and Chet had really kept things close, and then he had, the last week of the year averaged 38 a game, whatever it may be, something crazy to win Rookie of the Year, then we would have maybe seen a spike there. But he seems to be a consensus first on everyone's list right now. He's averaging 21 points a game, over 10 rebounds, almost 4 assists, over 3 blocks a game, shooting 32% from 3, 47% from the field, and has had some really impressive performances as of late. On the 22nd against the Grizzlies, went for 31 and 16, also added 5 assists, 2 steals, and 3 blocks that game. On the 17th of March, 33 and 15 against the Nets, 7 assists and 7 blocks that game. So we're seeing
that's almost my quadruple double that I predicted. Remember?
Damn near it. And we're seeing every week, it seems like there's another stat that comes out that Wemby's broken this record. Wemby's done something that people haven't done. And that's a kind of a testament to what you're saying about this could be a good card to just have. And it can be a great card to just buy raw and get it graded and sell. And I think you're right. I think he's going to be the face of the league for a long time. So we got to put Wemby back on the rankings. He is rightfully there. I'm going to keep looking for buying opportunities there for Wemby because I truly believe we're going to be in a spot where his prices are probably more than Luka's this time next year or the year after that or something like that. So good ad there from you. I love the ad. And then we'll talk Caleb Williams just a little bit. Like you mentioned, he slid down to 15th on the rankings after being pretty high. Paul, I want to know how much of this is credited to kind of his market going up over the last 14 days. If you look at his entire graded card market, actually not his graded card market, his entire market of rookie cards, not rookie cards, excuse me, because we don't have them. His entire card market over the last 14 days, if you look at the breakdown, it's up 8.3%. That's 84 different cards trading for a total of 393 sales. How much of that is factored into why we're moving him down? And what do you think we're expected to see? Like, should people that are looking to buy Caleb Williams right now, are they really just looking for deals because we're seeing his cards already kind of spike? Or do you think he's still a strong buy, even though he's slid that far in the rankings?
I mean, I think this is a reason why I've loved Caleb Williams for as long as I've loved him, because I do think he's like a guy that is going to sell well into his NFL career. Like, I think there's a track record already for this happening when you look back at CJ Stroud and Bryce Young prints from, similar releases still continue to sell well. I mean, especially Stroud, but the reason why Stroud sells well is because he's played well, right? So I think Caleb Williams is right in that world for a lot of people. I think most people think that, I'm going to buy this guy because I think he's going to play well in the future. I think that we're still in as much as this show has grown, I still think this show's audience is like 0.00001% of the entire sports card hobby. And so I think because the hobby continues to grow as well. And so I think most people think I'm going to buy this guy's card because I'm prospecting on he or she as a player, right? And so I think most of the reason why you're seeing Caleb Williams cards rise right now is because he's getting more media attention as the projected number 1 overall pick in this draft, which is really the only thing I ever banked on. And we reverse engineer what everybody else is thinking. And we say, we don't want to bank on how well this person's going to play, how we don't want to prospect. That's not what we do. So what we do is we say, this selling marker is going to be the point when everybody else wants to buy in because they're going to want to prospect on this person. We are going to sell this person at that point in time. So I think we are seeing exactly what I thought we were going to see, which is what you just described, which is a rise in Caleb Williams' market because he's getting all this attention as the likely number 1 overall pick. Do I think that we are moving him down in the rankings because his pricing is going up? 100% absolutely. And we don't want people prospecting on him. So what we're going to do is we're going to move him off the rankings very soon. And when we do that, it simply means that it's in line with a sell alert or in anticipation of a sell alert. And when we move him, when we put him back at some point in the future, it's going to be because his card market's settled, nobody's paying attention to him, and we think there's another selling marker. So we have no idea when that's going to be. So there's going to be a period of uncertainty for us with Caleb Williams, the same way that there was with Victor Wembanyama. And so, I mean, what 100% liquid player. People should have no problem moving their Caleb Williams cards for probably at least the next 6 months. However, the question is going to be, are they going to be able to move him for a profit or not? And that's where we don't want to play in that sandbox, because that answer is dependent upon how well he plays. And we're not making those predictions.
Yep, totally agree. Guys, make sure you're signed up for sell alerts. It's 1-833-992-5727. We will make sure you guys know when those cards have spiked and when the best time to sell them is. Also, we're always looking for ways to make money. We're always looking for ways to optimize upside to increase profits. And as of now, there's a new premium article live at nooffseason.com. Top 5 buy, raw, and grade plays. Paul, go ahead and break down what this article is all about and why it has so much good information inside of it.
Yeah, the Wemby card is was a little teaser to this because, spoiler alert, that card is in this article. But what we want to try to do is find opportunities for all of you in the nooffseason.com family to buy raw and grade. I think our content at nooffseason.com has evolved quite a bit over the last 18 months. A year ago, we were recommending plays to buy, say, 20 of the same lower priced card to submit to PSA in bulk value submissions. And the criteria for those recommendations in those articles were really gem rate, availability, price on the raw card versus the PSA 10 or the PSA 9. And they were typically liquid guys that we knew could be moved easily at some point within 3 to 6 months. So it would give time for the person to get their cards back from PSA and make money. So some of them had sell markers, some of them didn't. And I think we've evolved to a point where we don't necessarily want to always be like there will still be some of those plays. This article is different. This article is really more giving all of you the opportunity to find cards that you would put more like $100 to $150 into the card itself. And, obviously $19 into the grading submission, with the opportunity to take that all in, say $150 to $200, all the way up to potentially a 1K at a selling marker, or probably worst case scenario, like I said earlier in the show, around a 20% increase at the selling marker, which for a card like that 20% is obviously going to be more actual money, more actual cash than if it's a smaller dollar card. I think 2 reasons for this. Number 1 reason is when you buy the same lower priced card, 20 of them, and then you submit them to PSA, more than half of your actual money spent is actually going to the grading company. And what we want is the bulk of the money that you're spending to actually go into the card investment that you're buying. And then we want you to weave these cards in with however many other cards you need to get to that 20, right? So I think that this is just overall a better practice. It's been a better practice for me personally than going in and saying, I'm going to spend $600 on a PSA submission where I just go out and buy 20 Tua base cards because that happens to have a high upside of a PSA 10 and a nice floor at a PSA 9 and a good gem rate. I'm just throwing that out there, right? That's not as successful as going out and saying, I'm going to buy XYZ base autos which is the right. So what this is, Connor, this article this is buying the right card for the right player at the right time. Whereas those articles say last year were more, probably not the right card, just happens to be a card that you could get cheap and have high upside in a PSA 10 and have a decent gem rate probability of getting the PSA 10. So I think this is more of a surefire way to make money. There's actually 7 cards in here. So there's a couple bonus cards, even though it's a top 5 article. Surefire way to make money. I think these cards will break even if you get PSA 9s. I think you'll profit between 20 and 100% if you get PSA 10s and implement our selling strategies. I think the only problem people might have is actually cutting themselves off, because as many of you know, you need 20 cards to submit to PSA in bulk value subs. But what happens is, I know this from experience, you keep finding opportunities. And so you're like, I want this one, which is great. We don't want to deter you from that. But I think rather than wait until you have every single card in the mail to submit 30, 40, 50 all at the same time, what you should probably do is like cut yourself off at like 25, submit it. And then if you want to keep buying, and you'll get to another 20 or 25. But I wouldn't go into like 30, 40, 50 cards all in a bulk sub, because basically it will increase the chances of slowing that sucker down, as well as just, having a little bit more, I think a little bit more risk in continuing to buy cards and then wait on the calendar. As we all know, flipping is a timing game. So I think especially for the Wembys and some of the other cards in this article, you're going to want to get them back quicker. And so I think the only problem is just cut yourself off. But I'm really excited about this article, and, excited where we're going at nooffseason.com for sure.
There's also a baseball, a football, basketball, and a hockey play included. So no matter what sport you're trying to invest in right now, we've got something for you here. And I've been excited for months now about the idea of being able to have calculated risk in terms of taking a raw to grade play and then stacking it with our sell markers, because I think that's one of the best possible ways that you can give yourself high upside with the lowest risk possible, right? So really excited there. Great work from Paul's and stay tuned for more premium articles coming this week. We've been on kind of like a budget kick lately, Paul. I think that we had some feedback where we wanted to make sure all of our audience felt like we were addressing cards that were maybe under price point or whatever their price point may be. We just want to make sure we're covering the full spectrum there. So today we're going to hit on a little bit of segment called If I Had Between $100 and $150. So today we're going to look at what we would do if we had $100 to $150 to spend on sport cards in hope of making money. Paul, I'm actually going to let you take the reins here and go with your pick first, and then I will give mine.
Jordan Love 2020 Prism PSA 10 base. This card, I think, there's a million of them up for auction right now. And I don't know why, but, because I wouldn't be selling Jordan Love until September. But, it's a budget card that it'll probably be added to our player rankings at nooffseason.com. But again, this show's free, and you don't have to have a whole lot of money to get this card. I've been setting my bids on these auctions at $77. I haven't won any of them yet. I'm probably going to have to go. You're probably going to, honestly have to go up 85, 95, maybe in some cases to actually get this card. But there's plenty of profit in there for you, even if you go up to $100. But yeah, this is a perfect card. It's going to go up when the NFL season starts. Jordan Love, I think actually Jordan Love is going to be one of the top 3 names people are asking about at the National. So we talk a lot about, now we talk more than we ever have about how do you play the in-person game along with the online game. You know, we're scaling the online game, right? eBay and social media, you can scale that in the hobby. But you can also go to card shows as well. And so if you're somebody who's doing both, this is a card where you can buy multiple copies of this card now, or one if you're in that position where you in that $100 monthly budget. And you can buy, it's perfect time to buy it. March, no one's paying attention to Jordan Love. This is a go where they ain't. He's going to be one of the top 3 hottest names asked about at the National, so you could move it then. Or if you don't go to the National, you could easily move it in auctions or buy it now or best offers in August, early September, and you'll make money on this. It's not going to be a card, Connor. Really, none of these, like, you're catching lightning in a bottle if you like 10x $100 card. So anytime you're talking about $100 to $150 all-in play, you're winning if your like net profit is 20%. That's a huge win. And I think that's where this Jordan Love 2020 Prism PSA 10 lands.
Yeah, it's perfect timing. This is like the safe lock play pick in terms of an affordable card. I kind of went in a little bit of a different direction here. So shocker, I went the basketball card. Curious to see what Paul thinks, but a lot of good things happening here with this player and with this card. It's the Jalen Green 2021 Prism Silver in PSA 10 Rockets guard. Super athletic. I cannot believe, Paul, that this card is down 10.2% over the last 2 weeks. 14-day average cost of $137. The last sale was just $128. Why can't I believe that it's down? Because he has been absolutely killing it lately. Highlight posters. He's been shooting threes and turning around, not even looking to see if they're going in, and they are going in. Ankle breakers, whatever you're looking for, he's kind of throwing it out there. Last 10 games, he's averaging almost 28 points a game, just under 6 rebounds and over 3 assists. And the Rockets are just 1 game behind the Golden State Warriors for a play-in appearance, which could potentially be a sell marker. The Rockets are at 36-35, Golden State 37-34. I think this is an affordable card. And Paul, I know you were big on Jalen Green several months ago. Obviously, it's not necessarily the perfect time to be buying basketball cards, but man, quick sell marker potential and long-term potential sell market, because you can get a guy that I think is going to be a top player in the league for several years. We've seen it in his talent. It was just a matter of when he would mature, if the game could kind of fit NBA style. Obviously, it does. Super athletic, can do everything on the floor. I think my concern with this card, Paul, I do want to give a disclaimer, is that the Rockets play 7 of their final 11 games on the road and are just 10-24 away from home this year. They also have the 7th most difficult remaining schedule. So if you're going to buy this card, you can't be banking on them necessarily beating out the Warriors and having an immediate sell marker. You need to not need the cash flow back immediately, and you must be prepared to have to hold it until next year's NBA hype cycle. But I do believe Jalen Green is legit, and even if this postseason marker doesn't present itself, I think this is going to be a great card to be holding coming time into next year's NBA hype cycle.
I love Jalen Green. I love this pick. I think I've been high on him since he came into the league. He's got a massive social media following. He's drippy, as they say, and he's backing it up. He's finally backing it up, and he's young. I mean, what is he, like 21? I mean, he's, if that, 2021, maybe 22.
22.
Yeah, okay, so like he's super young. We talked about Ant-Man being 22. I mean, Jalen Green is also on a extremely exciting young Rockets team. I mean, they've got Jabari Smith Jr. They've got Amen Thompson, who's apparently playing center. So, I mean, this team's going to get a lot more national attention the more that they continue to evolve and gel. I mean, Alperen Şengün is like a like sort of fan favorite. Like he's like everyone's like underdog fan favorite type of player that everybody likes. So, a lot of great ballers on this team. Jalen Green is he's the number 1 guy. So I think he's the Rocket to own. And what a great card. Rookie Prism Silver PSA 10. Great find out of you. And yeah, Green's been cooking. So I like that you're unlocking the way to make money with basketball cards. That's a great pick. Love Jalen.
We're definitely working on it. But Paul, I do want to kind of test my own pick here and kind of question myself. I wouldn't be doing my job if I wasn't. Should we be concerned with how well he's been playing and the highlight that he's been putting out and them making a push towards a playoff appearance? Should we be concerned that this card is down? What's it going to take for it to spike? What do you think?
So sometimes with a card like this, you can look at, what available listings are there? What are the most recent sales? And a way to sort of mitigate against losing money is to try and obviously lowballing any of the buy it now or best offers that are out there, trying to snipe auctions at under comps or right at comps, and then trying to list right away at 20 to 30% above what you paid for, so that you can just see if you can quickly get out of that card while he is playing well. I think the real answer though is, do you believe Jalen Green? And this is a rhetorical question to the audience. Do you believe Jalen Green is a guy that you could buy now for this price? Last sale, $128, 14-day average cost of $137, which really means it's probably going up a little bit. Do you believe that you could buy Jalen Green 2021 Prism Silver PSA 10 now for, say, $150, and that card's going to go up between now and 12 months from now? And if the answer is yes, for all of your different reasons, then I don't think you have a whole lot to worry about. And if you're not sure and you think that it could go down, how much do you think it would go down, right? And my answer, without even really digging in further, is that I don't know that it would go down very much from where it is now. So I think that's a question where you have to say, I want to pull trigger on this card if I can get it in that range, $128 to $140, and I'm going to be pretty safe. Then you're giving yourself the upside of if the Rockets do something, or if Jalen Green continues to do something when it really does actually matter. And you also know that you're kind of at the floor. So I that's why I like this. But yeah, I mean, I could see where people would be a little bit nervous because there really isn't a clear selling marker. Could you list it in a buy it now or best offer for $200 during the opening week of next NBA season and move it? Probably. So for that reason, I think it's a good pick.
Love it. All right. We've got a lot of good stuff going on in the live chat over the last hour and 7 minutes, and it would be amiss if we didn't get to as much as we possibly could today, Paul. So as long as you're ready, we will go ahead and hop into some audience Q&A, comments, L's and W's as well.
Yeah, let's do it, man. I've been reading them, trying to stay focused, so I'm ready to get into the audience. Let's do it.
All right. Let's start off with the sports card professor. Says in a previous episode, Kurt's card care was commented upon. With the recent new discussion about cleaning cards, have you come out with your own opinion on Kurt's card care? Paul, what you think?
Hey, Professor, what's up, man? Good to see you, Orest. No, I haven't. Here's the thing. I don't get involved in a lot of the hobby chatter. I'm strictly focused on trying to help you guys find opportunities to make money flipping sports cards. I do grade though, so I see where there's a space for me to kind of get in on this. So I appreciate the question, Professor. I've never used Kurt's card care. I've only heard good things. I don't do anything to my cards. I do look at centering. I do look at surface, edges, corners. I don't do anything, and I never have, and I probably never will. It's just not worth my time. It's just really not worth my time. My play is to pick out the right cards for the right player at the right time. And when I'm grading them, before I buy them online or in person, I do give them a once over, just an eyeball. I'm good enough now at eyeballing in online photos, centering to see if it's not going to have a chance at a 10, and then I weed it out. And where you can get tricked, obviously, you don't really know what the surface looks like. But typically, if you zoom in on the edges and the corners enough on the online photos, you could at least weed stuff out. So that's just really me. That's the answer that's organic to me. I don't have an opinion. on Kurt's Card Care or cleaning cards or anything like that. We certainly talk at Sports Card School, and we have talked on this show and had people on this show talk about all of the above, right? But me personally, it's not that I don't believe in it one way or another. I just don't go there because it's strictly not where I'm focused and not where I spend my time.
Up next, we're hopping over to an L of the week from Rusty Amagart. It says, L of the week, got my Cole Carrig autos in mail, one of which was damaged. Any worthy options, or am I basically screwed? Cards were very well packaged.
Well, I think Shane Graham and maybe others in the live chat have evidence of where when your cards are damaged, if you do buy them, if you have bought them through eBay or even PayPal goods and services, you can go through the dispute process to try to get your money back and return the item. Luckily enough, I haven't had this happen to me, so I don't have a personal experience on whether or not I was able to get a refund, but it seems like Shane Graham and some others in the live chat are looking out for Rusty here to try to encourage him to try to get the refund through eBay.
Up next, another one from Sports Card Professor says, do we think Marvel cards do better in PSA slabs versus CGC slabs? Perhaps pop culture card grading is a more even playing field for CGC to compete in. Thoughts on non-sports cards and how different grading companies can compete with one another, Paul?
Yeah, Professor, thanks again for the great question. So I don't have any data or experience to back this up, but I think that you're right. I know that CGC has been more in the comic book grading for a lot longer than they've graded sports cards. And for that reason, that is one of the reasons that a lot of TCG people grade their, say, Pokemon or Magic the Gathering or like V-Friends, for example. Like I know V-Friends, like I think the company V-Friends grades all of their V-Friends cards with CGC cards. So they do have more, they have more of a PSA-ish reputation for TCG cards than they do for sports cards. Whether or not they sell better than PSA slabs, I don't know. I'm sure we could do some data analysis and get back on that, but I think you're onto something there, Professor.
Lonnie Conley in the live chat, did you guys hit on a banger in the hobby box break that we did for premium members? I need to listen to the show, but I'm dying to hear.
Yeah, so Lonnie, these are the Wembys that we pulled. It's a Wemby. The banger that we pulled is a Wemby red hobby exclusive. It's not serial numbered, but I did look up I found a comp from March for $995. So nooffseason.com. I just posted the article that recaps the Prism 2023-2024 box break that we did for premium members as a giveaway. And Jim McKeedon won. He had the Spurs, and so we also pulled a Wemby base. So Jim, I said, look, Jim, I've got a PSA submission in the queue where I've got like a bunch of my guys, like you see Quinn Ewers here, some Quinn Ewers cards. I've got a bunch of Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, some other Shedeur Sanders, Arch Manning, etc. You want me to throw your Wembys in there with them? And he said, yes, please. So it's not a service that I've decided I'm going to provide yet, but I am dropping Jim's Wembys in there. I think those were the bangers. The other one that was kind of funny, if you go back and watch it, is Tim D, Mountain Lake Cards and Games. I think he might be in the live chat right now. He had the Bucks, and I pulled a Damian Lillard snakeskin prism for him, and I had no idea what it was. And so I just kind of like casually went by it, and it was just kind of funny. So it was fun though, Lonnie. You know, I don't rip wax, so I did this for a giveaway, free giveaway for premium members, and I had a lot of fun. And I think that Wemby was the banger that you were talking about.
All right, we got to touch on Xavi Simons. It seems like the live chat is having a field day with him.
MW.
Space W likes to come in here every week, it seems like, and just throw Xavi Simons' name in the chat. So people asking why he's even a topic. A few months ago, even maybe weeks ago, lefty via lefty cards. was on the Sports Card Strategy Show and made a comment about Xavi potentially being a good. I think it was part of the 1K budget builder. It was either a low end or mid tier play.
Yeah, he's like a soccer themed 1K budget builder, I think. Maybe back in December.
He did. Did you have any feedback you wanted to give here, Paul?
No, I mean, shout out MW. MW lived in Valencia, Spain, where I lived. I think he lived there for a long period of time and Latin America somewhere, I believe. So I know MW is a soccer guy, and Lefty talked about Xavi Simons. I think the enthusiasm for Xavi Simons from MW's camp might be something along the lines of Xavi Simons pricing has probably gone up a little bit since Lefty made the call, which is great. I mean, good on Lefty. Check out Lefty Cards. Next episode, I think, is April 11th. Go to leftycards.com and click the button to subscribe to the YouTube channel to get those alerts and check out the next upcoming live stream. It's also on Spotify. So if you haven't heard Lefty Cards yet, go to Spotify, subscribe. All part of the nooffseason.com sports card network. And MW just putting names in the live chat. Love it.
Let's slide over to Mr. T, who shout out for the donation. Says, plant your flag. Which rookie quarterback will ball out the most this season? Thoughts, Paul? Plant your flag.
I love planting flag. Mr. T, thanks for the super chat donation. Appreciate you. Anyone who wants to get in on a on the spot prediction, give me a super chat donation and I'll go ahead and do it. Thanks. Thanks, Mr. T. All right, Mr. T. Rookie quarterbacks. Do you mean like guys who haven't even been drafted yet? Most ball out this season. Okay, I'll just assume that that's what you mean. I think that without even knowing what's going to happen in the NFL draft, since you put me on the spot, I would not be surprised. I'm gonna talk this out. I would not be surprised if JJ McCarthy balls out this season. I would not be surprised if Jaden Daniels balls out this season. I'll say I would be very surprised if Drake May balls out this season. I would, as high as I've been on Caleb Williams from a sell as the number one overall pick in the NFL draft for the last year and a half, I am not very confident that he's going to ball out this season. So this is probably going to shock everyone who knows my affinity for my alma mater, Michigan State, because I cannot stand the University of Michigan almost as much as I can't stand Aaron Rodgers. But I think I'm going to have to pick. I think with a flag plant, I'm going to flag plant on JJ McCarthy. I think JJ McCarthy would be the rookie QB most likely to ball out because I think his experience, his pedigree with Harbaugh, with IMG Academy, his experience in big games against top-notch opponents, including the Michigan State Spartans, who I believe beat JJ McCarthy a couple years ago. And this most recent love for him potentially being a top 5 pick. And if he goes to the Minnesota Vikings, I think you'll probably all agree with me. Kevin O'Connell, Justin Jefferson. Man, that would be that. I think that would put JJ McCarthy in the position to be that guy. So that's my flag plant. What do you, and Gabe Davis says JJ McCarthy is a bum. Brendan Lindgren says McCarthy threw 12 passes this year. I actually really like the hate for JJ McCarthy happening in the live chat right now, but JJ McCarthy's my flag plant. There it is.
I think, Mr. T, I would like to clarify, thanks for the donation, but I hate this question because I think it matters so much upon who they go to and what the situation is, right? My guy's going to be Jaden Daniels, but again, it just comes down to what kind of opportunity they're going to have as a rookie, what kind of organization / franchise are they a part of, what's the culture like? So many big factors that matter that I don't think the best performing rookie quarterback this year will necessarily be the best quarterback in the draft class. Just my thoughts.
Hey, let's do this. Mr. T, come back. Ask me that question after the NFL draft with another super chat, I'll give you my real answer. And then at the end of the NFL season, if I'm wrong, I'll refund half your super chat to you. Half your total super chats for the year. How about that? Deal?
Good stuff. Up next, I want to hit on Joe E's comments after the Jalen Green Prism Silver call. Wouldn't it naturally go down during the offseason, and why not wait for that dip if you think it will hold value to next season? A couple of reasons here, Joe. One, we're essentially at an all-time low for this card. And like me and Paul mentioned, I think we're pretty close to the floor. It might go down a little bit during the offseason, and I don't hate waiting until the offseason, just to clarify. I don't think that's a bad play. You can definitely do that, but you need to understand if you're waiting for the offseason, you're not giving yourself the short-term potential sell marker of the Rockets making a ridiculous push to somehow be a part of the play-in games, which could be a sell marker for this card and could be quick profits so that you have opportunity to invest in more stable assets, because I wouldn't necessarily label this one as the most stable or high upside assets that we've pitched on the show. So just my thoughts there. Head over to Shane Graham, has an L of the week. My L on Jordan Love. Bought an Orange Prism PSA 10 for $115, then sold for $280 3 weeks later. That card last sold for over $700. Shane, I'm going to let Paul touch on this as well, but I don't necessarily think this is an L. I think that we almost 3x the card here, and I think that you gave yourself quick profits to be able to reinvest in other plays that potentially could give you more upside. Obviously, yes, it last sold for $700, but if we always looked at cards and how much more they sold for than what we actually were able to sell them for, we'd probably be in a sad space all the time. So yes, it's an L in terms of missing out on $300 or $400 additional dollars of profit, but you still over 2x this card, almost 3x'd it. I think a win is a win, and you had more profits to kind of move into different areas. But Paul, what do you think here for Shane?
Yeah, I think this is Shane being modest, because I think I can tell from Shane's participation in the live chat every show that he is a baller sports card flipper. Like he's top tier. He's right up there with like Lonnie, Conley, Mosaic Joe, some of the other people in our nooffseason.com fam. So I think Shane Graham is a baller, and I think he's just being modest. I think he's being humble. He's saying this is an L, and it's a win, and I think Shane knows why it's a win. But I'll just kind of break it down for maybe some new listeners out there. I think at nooffseason.com and the Sports Card Strategy Show, we try to put you in a position where you're going to make money on the cards that you buy based on our guidelines, strategies, and plays, but not necessarily be the top comp of all time, because there's actually like more risk being the top comp. To try to be the top comp, you're taking on more risk because you're just holding. It's like that dumb Carvana commercial with Kristen Bell and Dax Shepard, where they're just like, it's like you're holding, and then you're holding, and then you're holding, and then you're selling. Well, if you're not the person that sells, like you're just trying to thread the needle at that point. So for everybody out there, I think this is a win for Shane Graham. I think there's always going to be, when you're following our guideline strategies and plays, or probably a better way to say it is when you're participating as a member of the nooffseason.com family and making your own plays based on the knowledge that you're gathering throughout all of the content and your own research, there's always going to be a situation where you're going to look back and you're going to go, oh man, I could have made X amount more dollars had I waited. But you have to feel good about just taking the cash and moving on.
Good stuff. Up next, sliding back over to Mr. T, says executed a Connor play, sniped a 2018 Sam Darnold downtown in PSA 10. What's the over-under on a successful 2x flip this year? Mr. T, I'm not going to lie to you. I pitched this one as a mega flyer play, and I think the draft is going to be very telling into the potential for this card to spike. Obviously, we did have so many injuries last year at the quarterback position that I'm not going to tell you it's a no-go, but I do think there's opportunity from potential injury, depending on what they do in the draft, if they have a quarterback that they feel like needs to develop. And again, I mentioned some similarities to kind of Aaron Rodgers' patience trajectory throughout his career that could potentially indicate that maybe we have a good year out of Sam Darnold this year and see some profits. So it was a flyer play. I love that you got it. Hopefully you got it in the right price point. I think that if I had to put a percent, Paul, I'd say the percent in this card 2xing is probably like 20%. But I think that's a good number for a flyer play personally, a mega flyer play as we pitched it. What do you think here on the Sam Darnold play?
I think that Mr. T has a great card, and you positioned it as a mega flyer last week. And the strategy here to me is whoever the Vikings bring in to compete with Sam Darnold, they will bill it as a competition through the preseason. And that is when Mr. T should sell it, because there will be Sam Darnold and somebody else will be in the news cycle throughout the month of August. And actually probably from April through August, right? Because they're going to draft somebody in April, or they're going to acquire somebody likely in April that's going to compete with Sam Darnold. I think Mr. T got it at a great price, and it's a great card. So he got it. He got the right card at the right time, which is 2 out of the 3. And while Sam Darnold isn't the right player, he is a player who will be in the news media for several months leading up to the season. And Mr. T should be able to easily move out of this card for a profit. So I'm not worried about it like 2xing or anything like that. I think that it could 2x Mr. T. Here's how you could 2x it. I'll tell you right now. You bought it for what, 200? List it for $599.99 or best offer. $599 or $595.99 bin OBO right now on eBay, and just field offers. That's how you'll 2x it. And I think your likelihood of 2xing it in training camp and preseason is higher, the highest possible timing to 2x it.
We started off the show talking about the easiest and most difficult sports to make money in. Alan Ma commented and said, being from up north where we live in igloos, hockey is easiest to prospect. Paul, I want to kind of touch on in what scenarios your region can affect your ability to make profits in certain scenarios. I'm under the impression that if we're talking about selling online, you're less likely to see a difference in region-based. But obviously, if we're talking card shows, Facebook Marketplace, things like that, it could really make an impact on the demand for the cards that you're trying to list and the prices for cards that you're trying to buy.
Yeah, I think regionality can play a role in just the economics of it. I think when you look at if you're in the US and you're buying a card from a Canadian seller or vice versa, fees and timing will always come into play. And so that could be shipping fees, that could be customs fees, depending on which end of that you're in. I know Canadians have to pay a lot in customs, unfortunately, for Canadians. I think they've changed some laws and things like that on customs. So I think that it can be, and timing can play a role, because I think a lot of people in other countries outside the US have to use a service that ships maybe a bunch of their cards all at once to save on, either multiple customs fees or multiple shipping fees, things like that. So regionality can definitely affect your ability. And I speak from experience. I lived in Spain for 5 years. So for most of those years, I had to use a vault service or multiple vault services, things like that. So I think that while we're in a world where you can flip online and make it happen, regardless of where you live, where you buy from and transact to and everything like that, you can make money. You can do it. We talk about that at Sports Card School, but I do think regionality, in terms of like hockey prospecting, for example, I would think we would be buying from a lot of Canadian sellers here in the US. And I think that could add up from an economic standpoint. I think what I'm very intrigued in from people like Alan Ma, we've had Cardboard Richard from Cardboard Box Breaks. We've had him on the show, and he's very knowledgeable in hockey. We've had Jeremy Lee on the show. Shout out Jeremy Lee of Sports Cards Live. He's very knowledgeable in hockey. Hockey is niche, and because hockey is niche, it's like soccer. You have to know, I think, everything about soccer prospecting to really make money on soccer cards. And I think because Alan Ma is saying it's easiest for him, I want to know more from Alan Ma. I want Alan Ma to email me at paul@nooffseason.com and tell me the secrets to making money flipping hockey cards. And then we're going to elevate that content as part of this show. Thanks, Alan. We appreciate it, man.
Up next, B. Penzel. I hope I pronounced that correctly. We did a lot of talk about Wemby this show. Do we think the Olympics will have an impact on Wemby's prices? Should we use this as a sell market, Paul? Assuming he plays well and France has some success.
looks like the live chat liked this call by B Penzel, and I do too. I think the Olympics could definitely have impact on Wemby and others. And so, other big names playing in the Olympics in July 2024, including Victor Wembanyama. This is what we talk about when we say we have a sell marker in mind for a particular card, but there could be things that happen earlier that could drive sales. And so it could be for Wemby, it could be for Anthony Edwards, it could be, for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who plays in, speaking of Canada. And so, yeah, man, I think this is a good call. I'm not going to say it's a sell marker, but I think it's a situation where you could see a price spike before the sell marker, which could definitely warrant a potential sell alert. So definitely text sports cards to 1-833-992-5727 to make sure you're signed up for those sell alerts.
I wanted to give a quick shout out to our guy, Bo Belcher, who was in the chat earlier. Happy Wednesday. This is exactly the kind of content I was looking for today. Not that my cards are taking L's, but learning from it. Bo, we're pumped to have you here. Thanks for the constant support. Let's head over to Brendan Lindgren, who I believe is here for their first live show. Is it worth taking down buy it nows and relisting tomorrow to get that new listing marker / interest? Paul, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe this was in reference to the baseball prospects.
Yeah, it is. I would say in specific scenarios, Brendan, like if Jackson Chourio hits a monster home run, or, if Wyatt Langford hits for the cycle or what, those are extreme examples. But like if a top tier guy that the market has kind of had their eye on, it could be Jackson Merrill, right? We sent out a sell alert for Jackson Merrill. He's not a guy that we talk a whole ton about, but it could be any of those guys that are making their MLB debut. It could even be for like an Ellie De La Cruz, right? It could even be for Shohei Ohtani, who we've kind of purposely avoided talking about for obvious reasons this past week. But anyway, like I think that that's when you do it, right? Like that's when you rip it down and you put it back up, either in a buy it now at a revised higher price to get that new listing and calibrate the pricing based on the hype that player just generated based on the performance, or an auction, because an auction at that point is going to get a lot more juice potentially after a big performance. So I like it.
Up next, back over to the Sports Card Professor. On several podcasts, Brian Gray, ex-CEO of Leaf, has indicated that one strategy he is partaking in is grading Ken Griffey cards and cracking them and getting on-card autos. Break this down for me, Paul.
Orest Boyko is like so plugged into everything that's happening. I love it. Yeah, I'm familiar with Brian Gray and I'm familiar with Leaf. I'm not familiar with the strategy that Orest is talking about, but I'm going to take it word for word, like how Orest spelled it out. So Orest says he's grading Ken Griffey cards and then cracking them out and getting on-card autos. So I guess in my mind, that would be like a way of knowing that, because here's what I think is probably happening here. Because again, this is totally secondhand because I did not hear Brian Gray describe this, but I could see kind of where this is going. So like Ken Griffey Jr. is an example of a guy, and there's a ton of other examples like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Deion Sanders, Barry Sanders, Troy Aikman, like any of those guys, like they don't have pack pulled rookie autos. Okay. So there's a market for their flagship rookie cards in high card grades that they've autographed. And so because those guys don't have pack pulled autos, there's not sort of that stigma where you'd have like a Drew Jones or a Jackson Holiday non-pack pulled event signed auto with the card grade or whatever, or an Anthony Edwards or LaMelo Ball. Like there's like a stigma around those where it's like, well, I want the pack pulled one. With Griffey, there's no stigma. It's like that would be his rookie auto, right? So what I think the professor is saying here is, what do I think of this strategy where like someone like Brian Gray would get a card graded or buy a highly graded card, I guess, of Ken Griffey Jr., crack it out, and then have Griffey sign it, and then get the card and the card graded and the auto simultaneously authenticated or graded, right? It would be like anything else. It would be like, what's the soup to nuts play? What's the cost of the raw Ken Griffey Jr. card? What's the cost of grading it? And then how many times do you have to do that to get a high Ken Griffey Jr. card grade that you would then crack out, have him sign, and then you would send that in to get authenticated as an auto and have the card graded again? The chances that Ken Griffey Jr. would damage the card signing it are pretty high. To me, I'm staying away from this whole thing. There's too much. While the Ken Griffey Jr. market is going to stay solid, there's too many variables that are outside of my control, and it's way too complicated to even like partake in this. It's just, there's too much overhead cost in terms of actual dollars and time to truly like have this be a money-making play. Maybe for a collector that wants this, if your grail card is a Ken Griffey Jr. 1989 Upper Deck Star rookie PSA 10 card 10 auto grade, well, then this is the venture for you. And you're going to keep that card forever. But this is not like, I don't think this is a flipping move. I think if you want to do some of this from a flipping standpoint, it would be much easier to go find Barry Sanders, Ken Griffey Jr., Magic Johnson, etc. Beckett authenticated autos that are already in Beckett slabs, and just simply buy the ones that you think the cards are in good condition, and then do a crossover grading submission to PSA that ensures that it stays in a PSA slab with a card and an auto grade. I've done that move. That move can make you some money. Jerry Rice, I made some money on a Jerry Rice 1986 Topps play like that. So that can make you some money, and that's very straightforward because you can just, here's how much the card costs, here's what the card looks like, it's already autographed by the guy, I don't have to crack anything, all I need to do is just send that slab into PSA for a crossover grade, for a crossover submission that ticks the box of the card grade and the auto grade. Boom, you're done. Like, I think if you do that over and over again, that could be a win.
Thanks for the interesting topic there, Sports Card Professor. Let's slide on over now to Jim Cunningham. Says that L of the week, Jackson Churio Sapphire PSA 10, bought it for $200 on December the 4th of 2023. Sold last night at $122.50. Paul, I'm curious in what fashion Jim sold this card, whether it was buy now or auction. Let's get your thoughts here.
Yeah, Jim, I want to personally apologize to you on this. I think that this is probably a situation where you just simply did what I told you to do, which was to buy this card at the right time. It's the right card for the right player at the right time. And then you probably did again what I told you to do, which was to list it in a 7 to 10 day auction. And the auction just did not perform due to the timing, right? You know, the timing of the Jackson Churio call up, breaking camp with the Brewers did not generate the hype that we thought that it was going to generate for every single one of his cards to make it that cookie cutter for you. And so I apologize for that. If I'm wrong, let me know. But I think from Jim's questions on the Overflow show last week, which was a great show, and I appreciate Jim, the conversation about it and the sell alerts. I think that this is an example of a result from Jim. And so this is, you know, I'm not gonna like dig my heels in and say, well, it was because of this or well, it was because of that. I'm just going to take it on the chin and say, look, it doesn't always work, unfortunately, the way that we thought it was going to work. I hope this is a one-off case. And I hope that when you look at things holistically, you're winning. But I appreciate you sharing the L, and, you know, let me know. Jim and I, we have a good rapport from him being a premium member at nooffseason.com. So I appreciate the submission of the L. We got to check ourselves, right? And we got to evolve and get better. So, Jim, sorry about the L, man, but you know, keep us posted on how everything else is going, and hopefully, you know, hopefully this was a case where it was an auction and it wasn't started or ended at the right time, where, you know, the ending of the auction definitely needs to be closer to the debut. The debut is literally like 24 hours from when I'm speaking. So like 24 hours from right now, there's a good chance Jackson Chourio will have just had his first major league at bat, or will be about to step into the batter's box in the MLB for the first time. That is when people will be bidding. So I think the timing, if this was it had to have been an auction, right? Because why would Jim accept a best offer for $80 less, $78 less than what he bought it for? So this had to have been an auction. It ended at the wrong time, man. It ended at the wrong time. So, but it also could be that maybe this card doesn't even move up tomorrow, but we'll see. It'll be interesting.
On the flip side, let's look at Drake May from Shane Graham. Says he's already creeping up. I bought his auto for $100 2 months ago, Paul. I'm assuming that's probably a raw, and is currently going for $120 to $150. I expect that to keep going up as the draft gets nearer. Just want to touch on this real quick, Shane. We're happy to see this start moving. I'm curious to see, Paul. We were kind of talking about, you mentioned that quarterbacks you think will have a different kind of, potentially a different strategy than some of these skill position guys. What happens to Drake May if you list in an auction ending on NFL draft night, Paul, and he slides? Should people be concerned about that?
Yeah, I think so. And that's part of the reason why I said what I said earlier in today's show, is that I think that if you're a lot into a card and you need to really think carefully about what card do you own? How much are you into that card for? What else is happening with that exact market of that particular card when it comes to listing it in an auction, so that you don't get slaughtered on any card. I think that's why selling is an art form. And I think you need to take as much of our advice as you can from all of our free and premium content, but also make your own decisions related to how to sell your cards so that you mitigate against your own risk and don't blindly just auction something off to a point where you're underwater on the card. But I think that Shane's probably going to be in a good spot with these Drake May cards because of how low he bought them in and where they're trending currently.
Couple submissions left. We're going to hit on stuff from No Name Cards now. Says, I'm sure this has already been addressed. Paul, we actually talked about this briefly before the show. How are we gauging Shohei Ohtani's market right now? What should people be thinking? Where are you at, Paul? Then I'll give my thoughts.
I'm not holding a lot of Shohei. I've literally only have one Shohei card, and I went ahead and listed it in an auction that ends, I believe, 2 days from now, because I wanted to liquidate my one Shohei card because of the opening day hype. I put that card in with all the other baseball cards that I wanted to liquidate with the opening day hype. And then what happened was the whole scandal with the interpreter. And so, but it's relevant for me to say that I'm not holding any Shohei cards right now, other than that one card that I bought literally for like half of comps. So I'm going to be fine on that card. I'm going to make money on that card. But it's relevant for me to say that because I didn't really want to be holding any Shohei anyway right now. So for me personally, and like how I recommend things, I haven't really recommended anything other than like his 2018 Topps Chrome base pitching, because it's been so cheap and it's so liquid. Like it's like you'll never really move in or out of that card you'll never really be more than 10% at a loss, and you'll never really be more than 50% up on that card, just because it's like pop 20,000. So I haven't really gone out on any limbs or anything like that on Shohei's market. So I haven't felt the need to gauge it as an investor, as a flipper. So for me, it's just fading. It's just fading his entire market right now. It's fading everything, because like I wouldn't buy, I wouldn't sell, it's a hold. It's a hold, it's a fade, whatever you want to call it. It's the same thing. You're not really trying to transact Shohei right now because you just don't know what's happening with him. And, there could be some major fallout, or it could be nothing. And I don't keep up with it on a minute by minute basis, Connor. So I'm sure you have quite a bit of valuable stuff to add here for the audience.
I just had honestly a couple just thoughts in terms of risk. I'm always thinking risk, right? My concern here is that if Shohei somehow becomes tied up into this scandal and is, whether it be put on suspension for if they're going to do lots of investigation, whatever it may be, potentially his card price is sliding in the coming months because of his lack of presence in the MLB. So, Paul, you mentioned you were in on this card at a great price. That's why I love that you have it listed. I think if you're someone that got in on Shohei at a very low price and his cards are at a spot right now where you're comfortable getting the cash out to kind of avoid even if it's a very small level of risk, avoid the risk of if he does somehow get tied up in this entire scandal and somehow misses time. But then again, when he comes back from the suspension, we're going to see his card spike. I think at some way or another, Paul, we talked about this before the show, we're going to see his card spike over the next 365 days. So I don't think there's a huge cost for concern, but if you're in at the right price point, and you want to mitigate risk and have money to get back in other plays, I don't hate listing him right now.
Yeah.
Sorry, anything else to add there, Paul?
I just want to talk real quick to No Name Cards about Shohei's teammate, Gavin Lux. So No Name Cards is a new member at nooffseason.com and submitted a question in Monday's show in this segment, but also through our form at nooffseason.com/ask for us to answer on the Overflow show about Gavin Lux. So while I have No Name Cards and Connor right in front of me, I'm going to say to both of you guys, I really want to answer No Name Cards' question on the Overflow show this Friday about Gavin Lux. There'll be a lot of good stuff to talk about there. So stay tuned for that. No Name Cards. Really appreciate you being a member of the family, checking out our premium content and participating in this show. I guess a quick follow-up here, Connor, before I go back to you. No Name also says, how close are we to have a Tatis or Wander type market collapse? I don't know, man. I just don't know. I just, that, like, I would say that if the MLB suspends him for a season, or something significant, 50 games, I don't even know. I haven't followed it. I read the whole story and then I'm like, okay, this is nuts. So I think that, that's what I'm saying. Fade, hold, don't buy in. Don't market collapse, I guess would be likely. I would say we would be likely if he is disciplined. There would be a likely market collapse because it's baseball. When this stuff happens in baseball, we have historical reference for a market collapse. Now, what action items there would be based on a market collapse for Shohei? I would say tune in, stay subscribed, keep listening, keep watching, because we'll definitely, as we know more, we'll have more analysis on what to do about a potential market collapse, or maybe it's nothing. We'll see. Now, likelihood of rebounding, though, I will say this. I will say that I think here's a flag plant, Connor, for the people, for the fam. I think, let's say his market does collapse. Let's say he's ostracized and villainized for whatever role he has or hadn't had in this. Maybe he is totally naive to it, or maybe he was involved. But let's say he's disciplined and there's a fallout, right? And there's a market collapse. I would say that the likelihood of a rebound from Shohei Ohtani would be, I'm going to say 99.9% likely that when he does come back and he's pitching and hitting for the Dodgers, I think you got Michael Vick. Michael Vick sort of bounce back situation, times 10 when Shohei Ohtani does. Now that I don't know when that would be, but I'll tell you this: if Michael Vick can come back from what he came back from, Shohei Ohtani can with his talent level can definitely and will definitely rebound from this at some point.
Totally agree. Let's hit on Bo Belcher's question that he snuck in at the buzzer, and then Paul, I'll let you round the show off in whichever manner you like. Says, sold a card last Friday and the buyer has yet to pay. How long do you give a buyer to pay before you consider other options? Also says, give me just one moment here, only his second sale on eBay, so it doesn't have much to compare it to, unfortunately.
Great question. Probably super relevant to most of the audience here. Bo, So eBay gives, I believe, everyone 4 days to pay for an auction that they won or a best offer that they won that they weren't auto charged for. And I think you just give them the 4 days. A lot of times what'll happen is the buyer will say, can you cancel this? Blah, blah, blah. I always just say whether the buyer just totally ghosts me or whether the buyer asks to cancel, I always just say, I'll cancel it, but I'm going to wait until eBay prompts me to cancel because you didn't pay. Because then what happens is it's not going to affect your seller rating in any way. I think if you were to do something about it prior to the 4 days, there's a chance that it could affect your seller rating and come back against you versus like you just wait. It's just like, hey, okay, so the buyer doesn't pay, you still have the item, no harm, no foul. Just wait until they don't pay. And what'll happen is after 4 days, eBay will change your option. Your option to cancel will include an option that says buyer didn't pay. And then you choose that option and you cancel it, and it'll give you the option to relist it for free. You can relist it for free. What I like to do in that case is relist it for free, but then change it to a draft because now it might not be the right time anymore. I don't hate when buyers don't. By the way, I haven't had a buyer not pay, knock on wood, in like 2 years. So I don't know why. It's because I just have more sales now. I don't know if I have better cards now, what it is, but I haven't had a buyer not pay in 2 years. And so I think you just got to keep going. The only detriment to a buyer not paying really is the timing, because in theory you would have had it listed at the right time and you would have missed a window, and that sucks. But other than that, you still have the card and I think you can still win. So Bo, great question. Thanks to everybody. I do want to give a quick shout out to Gabe Davis, because Gabe Davis, I think, has become like our live chat resident comedian. A lot of what Gabe Davis puts in the live chat is pretty darn funny. So I appreciate that. But thanks to everybody, whether you're listening on Apple and Spotify or whether you're in the live chat right now. We appreciate you, fam. I'm good for today. Connor, you got anything to add before we... Well, actually, I do have one more thing to add before we hit him with the outro. It is this. Don't forget, we are giving away a $250 Graybo's gift card on Monday, April 1st, this upcoming Monday. It is not an April Fool's Day joke. Go back and listen to Monday, March 25th's podcast for all of the details on how to be eligible to win. Essentially, we want people commenting on our videos. We want people commenting on our IG posts. And the more you do that, and if you are a premium member at nooffseason.com, you will get more entries into a wheel of names, randomness, and you will win courtesy of Ryan Painter, who pulled that big Chet Holmgren true NT RPA valued at around $5K, a $250 Graybo's gift card. So go to graybos.co and check out what they have, and then get excited about your ability to potentially win that on Monday. Connor, anything you have to add before I hit him with the outro?
Let's wrap it up. Premium members, be pumped for a good overflow up show coming Friday, and hope everyone has a fantastic Easter on Sunday.
Make money flipping sports cards. Out. Thanks so much for being here with us on the Sports Card Strategy Show. To connect with us further, please subscribe to the YouTube channel at youtube.com/Paul Hickey. Please also give us a follow on Instagram at Sports Card Strategy and on X at NoOffSeasonCard. We also have a Discord that you could join at sportscardstrategy.com. Everyone, I'm Paul Hickey. For the rest of us here at nooffseason.com, have a great day. We'll see you again soon.